Let me introduce, if I might, another one of my heroes. Now, can you have heroes that are the same age as your children? Well, the answer is apparently yes. Because, the children that I have here tonight are approximately the same age as John Stonestreet. So I'm proof that you can. John Stonestreet is, to put it bluntly, the successor of Chuck Colson. Like Colson was for many years, John is today a powerful Christian voice of faith, of hope, of love, and of reason. I can't think of any virtues more important for this moment than those. John is president of the Colson Center for Christian Worldview and the daily voice of Breakpoint, the nationally syndicated commentary on the culture founded by Chuck Colson. Please welcome to the stage my friend, John Stonestreet.
Wow, thank you very much. Tom, I don't know how old your children are, but I'm 72. I've just aged rather well. Of course, it just needs to be said, there's no such thing as filling Chuck Colson's shoes. That just is not a possibility. But tonight we join with all of you. There's a line that Chuck used to love. He said, he was quoting Isaac Newton, I believe, "If I've seen further than most, it's because I've stood on the shoulders of giants." Chuck was one of those giants. Tom, you're one of those giants. And Alan Sears is one of those giants. And there's so many others in the room, and it's such an honor to be a part of this tonight. You know, I often wonder what William Wilberforce was thinking in 1797. That was 10 years after he became the leader of the abolitionists in Parliament. Or what he was thinking in 1799, 12 years after he started this campaign, as he would put it later, for the abolition of the slave trade and the reformation of manners. Or maybe the year 1802, 15 years after. You know, if any of us were presented with a cause, with a fight that we knew would be successful in 20 years, we would jump on immediately. But that's the thing, isn't it? You don't know going in that you're going to be successful. You don't know that you're going to win or you're going to lose. You don't know if you're going to get beaten or if you're going to put the opponent down. It's just impossible to know. In 1993, a group of Christian leaders came together and approached Alan Sears about founding an organization, one that would show up to represent Christians in the public square, people of faith as well, an organization that would stand up in defense of the unborn, in defense of marriage as an institution, and especially in defense of religious liberty, through strategy, through training, and through legal advocacy. When they approached Alan, his response to them was, "Are we here to win?" Their answer was yes. And so Alan took up this cause. By the way, they also said that he wouldn't have to raise any money, but that didn't come true. Alan led the Alliance Defending Freedom for the first 24 years of its existence. It's now the world's largest law firm dedicated to protecting religious liberty, free speech, the sanctity of life, parental rights, and marriage in the family. Because free speech is for everyone, ADF advocates for the rights of all Americans to say what they believe without fear of government punishment. So far, ADF has won nearly 80% of its cases. Since 2011, 14 wins at the United States Supreme Court. It's a remarkable organization, and many of us have had the privilege to be associated with it in so many different ways. But starting out in 1993 with very little funding, it was impossible to see at that point what ADF would or could become. That they would be instrumental under Alan's leadership, not only in defending but in advancing both the idea of religious freedom and religious freedom protections for real people across the United States and around the world. So much so that 24 years later, in 2017, Politico magazine named Alan among the top 50 thinkers, doers, and visionaries transforming American politics. I can imagine they probably named him that with some chagrin. Now, for those keeping track at home, that was 24 years into his journey in leading ADF. It was the same year that he would step down and hand the reins over to Mike Ferris, and it was also just 2 years after the Supreme Court issued a decision in a case called Obergefell versus Hodges, which many people, myself included, thought would be the beginning of the end of the kind of religious freedom that ADF had stood for and fought for, and the kind of protections that Americans had long enjoyed. And see, that's the thing about Allen's career. It was done in faith, in service of a cause bigger than himself, worthy of his life, his talents, his calling. It's been the kind of life and career that was described by Friedrich Nietzsche as a long obedience in the same direction, described in Holy Scripture as faithful and fruitful. As Kierkegaard told us, life has to be lived forward, and it's only understood backwards. Today, looking back, we can thank God for his servant, Alan Sears, for the vision that God gave him, and for the wife that he gave him, too. For the strength that God gave Alan day in and day out to move forward. And of course, we thank him for his mercy in granting him a reprieve from these health challenges late in these last few years. Alan Sears' tenacity mirrors that of William Wilberforce. For more than 2 decades, Wilberforce faced bitter and powerful opposition to his work to end the slave trade. But he never gave up. He never quit. He never lost what Abraham Lincoln once called faith in a vast future. Allen lives that way too, with the future in mind, and it's a vast one. In a Breakpoint commentary years ago, Chuck Colson told of a tired and weary William Wilberforce sitting in his chair studying his Bible when an old letter that he had saved fluttered from between its pages. It was written by none other than the great Christian evangelist John Wesley. Here's what Wesley wrote. Unless God has raised you up for this very thing, you will be worn out by the opposition of men and of devils. But if God be for you, who can be against you? Are all of them together stronger than God? Oh, be not weary of well-doing. Before founding the Alliance Defending Freedom and serving as its founder, CEO, and general counsel, Allen served under President Reagan and President George H.W. Bush in their administrations, first as federal prosecutor, then as chief of the criminal section in the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Western District of Kentucky. But he was also asked to lead the Attorney General's Commission on Pornography in the Reagan administration. The commission's recommendation under Allen's leadership went to Congress and were adopted by the U.S. Senate with a 96-0 vote and then signed into law. So much of that experience dealing with what was at the time a great moral scourge on the nation, the growth and expansion of pornography. So much of that experience shaped how Allen would continue to lead, working across the aisle, facing incredible opposition and anger, staring down some of the worst ideas about human nature and behavior, while still seeking to care for and to protect the victim of those bad ideas. It prepared him in a powerful way to found and to build Alliance Defending Freedom, and to launch its various programs and initiatives, which are almost too many to actually list here, from ADF International, ADF Foundation, the ADF Legal Academy, the Summit, Blackstone Fellows, the Center for Academic Freedom, Pulpit Freedom Sunday, and on and on and on. Allen, of course, is now retired, which to Allen seems to mean something completely different than it does to most people. He continues to serve an incredible amount of people, causes, and organizations and foundations, and he mentors first-time CEOs now as executive director of the Kingdom Alliance Builders, equipping them to succeed and to expand their work. And by the way, what I mean by equipping them, I mean us. I have the privilege of being one of those that has been mentored and cared for and instructed by Alan Sears. Alan has been incredibly kind to me personally. Not just in these last few years, but even before, as I first had the privilege of working with the Alliance Defending Freedom in various contexts. I've learned so much, Alan, from watching you lead, listening to you wrestle with ideas and situations, and watching you love and serve others, including your family. And I want to say thank you personally. In reality, however, it's not just what Alan has accomplished, what he has done for the cause of religious liberty and conscience rights that really needs to be mentioned and recognized tonight. It's also how he has done it. Because he has done it right. By taking on what I'll call an others-focused posture. Alan once said that those who act alone rarely succeed. And Alan has exemplified and taught me about what it means to involve others in so many different ways. First of all, Alan has taken a posture of learning from others. Even after his formal education at the University of Kentucky and Brandeis School of Law, Alan has remained a curious person, committed to ongoing learning and personal formation about leadership, about business, about law, about theology. That posture of curiosity is a way that Alan is actually expresses his humility and learning from others. And of course, he's also a student of history, which can be seen in his excellent book on President Eisenhower. He took a posture of learning from others. He also took a posture of serving with others. It's just been amazing over the years to watch the team at ADF just get better and better and better and better and better. And now even continued after the leadership baton has passed. Building alliances, including unexpected alliances across partisan lines, across faith lines, across denominational lines. And in all of this, Alan has been committed to his own maxim, which he has shared with many, and if you've been around him, you've probably heard him say it, that one of the things he tries to do, and I think he's done, is to make stars of others. He also took a posture of working for others, for victims of government overreach, for victims of the sexual revolution, for people of all faiths through the mission of ADF. Though the mission of ADF was articulated by Bill Bright as to keep the door open for the spread of the gospel, Alan built his work around that belief, but also the belief, as he put it, that nothing is more important than being able to shape your own conscience and live according to that conscience. Alan's work would have never succeeded if he had not first grasped what is true, what is really true about people, who they are. In fact, I'd suggest that any work done in the realm of religious liberty, either advancing it or defending it, won't work if it devolves into a defense of someone's own special interest. What it has to do is be clear on three things. First, that our value as human beings is based on who we are, not what we do. It's intrinsic, it's inherent, it's not external, it's not constructed. It's based in the fact that every single human being is made in the image and likeness of God. We have to be clear that our rights as human beings are granted by God, not by the state. A just state is one that recognizes those rights, but also recognizes that only God can grant them. And we have to be clear on what fundamentally motivates human beings. And that is their faith, their deeply held beliefs. We're not economically determined creatures. We're not socially constructed beings. We are believers. We are lovers. We are worshipers. And that is something that has to be done freely. In his book on President Eisenhower, Alan included this quote from President Eisenhower: "Faith is the mightiest force that man has at his command. It impels human beings to greatness in thought and word and deed." It's also, by the way, why faith is so dangerous to tyrants, so feared by those who think that the state is the highest authority, who think that only government can order society and human life and ensure the human good. They're wrong, of course, but they're right in seeing faith as their greatest enemy, because faith is. Alan also took a posture of calling and inspiring others to act, and that's really why we're here tonight. Early on, by the way, Alan realized just how important education would be to the cause of religious freedom. Because what we're dealing with right now is a culture that not only is rejecting religious freedom in so many ways, attacking religious freedom in so many ways, but just actually doesn't get what religious freedom is all about in the first place. So to define religious freedom is an essential task of its defense, to define religious freedom. After all, it was just in 2016 where the chairman of the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights called religious freedom, quote, code words for discrimination, intolerance, racism, sexism, homophobia, Islamophobia, and Christian supremacy. Now, for many younger Americans, religious freedom just means a license to discriminate, to be a bigot. Not a net positive, not even something good, but a net negative. But religious freedom is an essential idea, and it has to be defined in order to be defended. It's not merely the right to believe, it's the right to act. It's not limited to believing what we want in our own heads, in our own hearts, homes, or even houses of worship. It certainly is that, but it's so much more. Religious freedom is the right to order our public lives according to our deeply held beliefs. And when religious freedom is protected, the other freedoms flourish. That's why the educational work of the Alliance Defending Freedom under Alan's leadership was so strategic. It's going to be hard ever to quantify the incredible impact that the Blackstone Fellowship has had on this country. And that all came from a napkin, didn't it, Alan? That was sketched out on a napkin. It's also why, by the way, the educational work that we heard about earlier this evening from RFI is so important right now. We need good law. We need better legal protections, but we need people to understand what religious freedom is and why it is so important. Today, through Kingdom Alliance Builders, I'm the beneficiary of an education from Alan Sears through mentoring on how to lead others, how to keep that vision of a vast future in front of me. And it's been an incredible asset to my life and to my ministry. And I thank you, Alan, again. The final posture that Alan took is a posture of relying on others. Of course, for years he's relied on his beautiful wife, Paula. And their ministry together has been unbelievable. His lovely and expanding family. But first and foremost, and if you've ever been around Alan for just a few moments, you'll know that his life verse is John 15:5, in which Jesus said, "Without me, you can do nothing." And he's relied on Jesus for the success and the leadership that he has shown. And we've all been blessed because of it. Thank you, Alan, for your courage, for your leadership, for your kindness to me, for your friendship, for giving us a vision of a vast future, for pointing the way there. And I'd like to invite Tom Farr back up to the stage and my friend Alan Sears to receive the RFI Defender of Religious Freedom Award.